then, yes, of course you can have the slides. And then, of course, Angie's presentation, which was also great. And then there's me. So I appreciate everyone for joining and talking through this. My name is Eric Fullerton. I'm the lead product evangelist at Acquia, which is something where I'm able to talk to lots of customers and lots of partners and prospects and help drive forward, and analysts, of course, just got off a call there, and drive kind of our message and our vision forward. And for those of you who maybe, hopefully, I think saw yesterday, we had a really exciting announcement and launch of our digital experience platform, our open digital experience platform. And I'm gonna have some of that messaging embedded, but my talk today is really gonna be about how open applies to marketing. And I think it's an interesting thing because in this community, for all of the folks who are in the Drupal community, I know we think a lot about open source when we think about open, and as we should. I mean, that's great. Open source it's the best way to build software. You get to leverage this power of this amazing community, the best open source community in the world, to collaborate and create. So for this presentation, how we're applying open to marketing, I want to focus a little bit as on open as really like as an approach to technology. In order to do that, I kind of have to redefine it, pull it back from open source. And by the way, if there are questions, feel free to shout them out. I'll probably try to get to them in the end, unless I can get to them in the actual talk track. And I'm happy to stay afterwards for questions as well. All right, so in order to do this, we need to redefine the concept of open, and to think not just about open source software, but as an approach to technology, and really, I think, as an approach to marketing in general. So in order to do this, I actually went back to the drawing board, and I kid you not, I actually went online and I looked up the definition of open. Pretty sure that's the first time I've ever done that. I'm pretty sure we have all known what the actual meaning was, but I thought it was kind of fun because it's a very fundamental way to how we want to approach marketing, how we want to bring some of the things that make open source so great, and things that, that community, that shareability, that ability to collaborate, and then how can we apply those things to the practice of marketing, which in many cases can be a little bit closed and a little bit siloed. So, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. Not closed or covered, available. It's not limited, and it's ready to use as a product, ready to use as a service. So, while we're bringing in a lot of that value, what makes open source so great? Applying it to marketing, and when I'm going to talk about open in this presentation, that's really what I mean: unlocking the value of technology for marketers, but also for everyone across the organization. Now, this is something that is really important. I don't need to tell anyone on this virtual conference that we're in the middle of experiencing a pandemic that has changed the way that people and community and societies interact. And we went from, we want to be digital first or digital only, and instead we had to need to be digital almost overnight. And marketing plays a really big role in that. But unfortunately, many organizations weren't necessarily ready. There's a lot of silos, and there's a lot of different pieces of the puzzle that make it really hard to enable that digital transformation on the marketing side. So McKinsey found only 8% before 2020 felt they were ready to compete in digital first world, but now we're seeing that many organizations, almost 75%, are realizing this and they need to invest, but the way that they're going to invest is going to be dependent on the success they're going to see is going to be dependent on how they approach these tools and these solutions. And digital transformation and digital engagement, it's not an easy thing to do. So before I want to talk about how open can unlock your business and really overcome some of these challenges, specifically as it relates to marketing, I want to take a few minutes to talk about the problems. And I don't want to say like closed approaches don't work and open do. I really want to dig into the why that is, because I think it's really important. And in my opinion, and I think in Acquia's opinion, that requirements for engaging online are only increasing. And in order to build digital experiences, you need to gain real customer intent. You need to be able to build content rapidly and scale to protect your business. And this closed approach isn't really working for the majority of brands, as we saw in the last slide, and we don't think that it will work for most brands. So let's talk a little bit about why that is. So every time we in order to digitally transform and accelerate our digital transformation, we invest in technology. We either buy technology or maybe we build that technology. And this technology is something that, in general, we hope, solves the problem that it was designed to solve, but it also presents these new challenges, right? They lock different content into certain applications or maybe in certain teams, so they're not accessible across the organization. Sometimes you have a duplication of efforts, inconsistent experiences, and then you have your data, critical to the experience, locked in specific systems as well. So the information isn't pervasive, maybe it's not integrated. You know, there's this lack of customer understanding, intent, and the real upshot of it is there's data that marketing teams don't really trust to run and build campaigns. And then with each new system, you need to make sure that you still have that governance so you can remain secure and remain compliant and protect people's data, which is critically important, and make sure that you're highly performing everywhere, which is a requirement we're seeing. I'll talk about that in just a moment. So each time we build and each time we buy, when we do closed approaches, we're only making this problem, the silos problem, a little bit more complex. And that's why I hope I don't need to convince folks on this in this conference or on this call, but in order to do this, I think we need a better approach. We need a different approach to break down some of those silos, to open up not just our technology, not just our IT solutions, but our marketing solutions as well, so they're connected in terms of how we create content and how we collect and analyze data. And this means maybe we're building for open, maybe we're buying for open, but open should be at the core of those decisions. And as I said earlier, yes, open always means open source. It's the best way to build, and you'll never hear me say anything else. But it also means, all right, how do we enable our developing teams to build open? Well, that's supporting multiple different frameworks so they can build the applications that they want. It's open APIs so that you can support multiple different API types to integrate with your bot systems or your built systems. That's right, Michael, it does. And sometimes, folks, by the way, if you need to just hit refresh, it'll refresh. This happened to me a couple times yesterday during Dree's note, where the slides will get stuck. So I've just hit refresh. If that's not working, please let me know. So open APIs to integrate with every system it's bought or built, and now we're gonna have to start about thinking ones that maybe aren't invented yet. But it also means unlocking the tools and technology so that teams can share digital work across their organization, provide access and insight to marketing tools, to open up marketing to the organization by unlocking the content and the data that's at the core of this experience. So what I'm gonna talk through next is 4 key ways that open can apply to marketing, share some market trends on why that's really important, and then talk about how those can drive some value in your business. So the first is that, as I think we all can understand and see, that the full buyer journey is really moving online. In some businesses, the entire experience from awareness to purchase to customer advocacy is fully moved online. And now, if it's not fully online, it begins online. 87% of people who are shopping begin their search on digital, and that's actually up significantly, even from just 2 years ago when it was at 71%. So having the right content and experience is really key. 73% of consumers are using multiple channels to shop, and the average customer, when we think more about like longer term buying, they're engaging with 3, 4, 5 pieces of content minimum before talking to someone in the organization. So content is where the full journey is delivered and built, but online isn't just the beginning, but it's going to be moving on to the full experience. And that means that content really needs to be everywhere. You need to have content that's in multiple different places. It can connect to multiple different systems. And for marketers, first we had to keep up with web, and we had to keep up with email and social, these multiple channels. But then we have all these new devices that we see seemingly popping up overnight: screens, gestures, voice, and chatbots. And that means that content can't just be one place. It needs to be everywhere to make sure that we can engage people at the beginning, the middle, or the end of their journey. And what we fundamentally believe here is that we want to be able to open up content across your organization. And there's kind of 3 ways that we can help do that, which the first is making content easier to create, which is these low-code solutions that would sit on top of a Drupal, for example, so that marketers can help contribute. I mean, we love Drupal. We want everyone to use Drupal, But as we heard Dries talk about yesterday, the beginner experience isn't necessarily Drupal's strong suit. So how do we get more people, more businesses, more folks investing in Drupal and seeing the value of Drupal? And that's by making Drupal easier for marketers to be able to contribute, and collaborate on these different content creation activities and the editing, update, and management. So what we want to do is make the content creation easier and make it simpler with these low-code tools, so that really what we want to do is have developers, our Drupal developers, focusing on things that aren't maintenance and aren't updates to sites and changing colors and paragraphs, right? Enabling marketers to do that so developers can focus on building these next generation experiences, these really powerful, engaging experiences online, which they're so good at and Drupal is so good for. Now, we still need developers more than ever in IT, and we want them to still kind of own and have control over that experience. This really means that they can define their content models at the top level. So developers are doing this and all the different components, and this is going to help ensure that content is structured, which means that it's going to be discoverable, it's shareable, and reusable across an experience of any different type. So you can create your content once and then have it be shareable and usable on all those different screens and modalities and channels. And we also want content to be more accessible. Marketers getting access to libraries of pre-approved templates and presentation components, they're going to be able to then help contribute and collaborate to those digital experiences that are provided IT. So marketing can now help build, manage, edit, update, not only these traditional marketing-oriented sites, but also for any experience across the life cycle. Maybe it could be a demand gen site, a commerce site, a customer loyalty site, a supporting employee site. And if you can do that, when you can share the digital workload across the organization, marketers are going to be able to quickly make updates and changes. You can create really compelling content and experiences more quickly because your developers are focused more on those compelling experiences, those unique differentiators. And then when you don't have to create content from multiple different channels, you can eliminate all this duplication and rework. So you're not creating a piece of content for your website, a piece of content for the kiosk, a piece of content for a digital sign, a piece of content for something that would happen on an app. And when you open up your content, it's going to make it easy for your customers to get the content that they want on the channels that they want. When you open content across your organization, you can really accomplish some incredible things. So I want to talk through a couple examples here of how we've seen this actually happen. So the first is the city of Boston, and I love this example. I think it's a great example. It's a local government. We're headquartered here in Boston, and we're working with them for a while. So this is not the most digital first organization, but for them, they were able to move thousands of different pages and thousands of different words onto their new platform and experience. And they were able to do so under budget, of course, because of the value of Drupal and being able to do that, and also under time, right? It was 11 months after they kicked off their meeting, they were able to launch this new site, thousands and thousands of web pages. And just recently, in response to coronavirus, they had to spin up a new site. It was the resource center for all Bostonians to look up different updates, what was happening in terms of coronavirus, new messages and communications that were sent out by the mayor, by the governor, and others. And they were able to build an entirely new experience in just a couple of days because of that flexibility that we were able to talk about. And then when we think about content everywhere, the MTA is a really good example here, being able to use the same content management tools and systems that power its websites to be able to then push content and data to thousands of digital signs in hundreds of different cities all across New York. So they're making, of course, they're able to make customers the priority, but for their business, they're able to roll this out and create content once and share it up to wherever customers are. And for them, it's really wherever constituents are. And it's something that when I think you're able to get to market, to create content really quickly, a lot of elimination of reuse. I think it's a really nice story where it's not just about web, it's also about digital signs and things like that. And then another great example that I really like here is our customer that is Bayer, obviously a massive pharma brand. And they had this goal of bringing 500 plus sites live in 6 months. And they had this amazing core team of developers. And what they were able to do with IT is create these reusable components and essentially create this master style guide that so they were able to kind of really quickly and easily assemble different sites and assemble different experiences based on that pre-approved work. They wouldn't have been able to do that if all that was bottlenecked in their IT teams or in their development teams. And folks with no Drupal development skills at the core were actually helping contribute to build an amazing Drupal site, therefore kind of unlocking not only the content, not only the experience, but the value and the benefits of using Drupal to create and to communicate. And that's always very exciting for us. All right, so I'm going to shift now, moving away from the open content piece and talk a little bit more about data, about orchestration, and about machine learning, which I think are the three other components. So it's content, data, machine learning, and orchestration and personalization are the four ways that we're going to be opening up marketing. So the trend here is that consumers want brands to better understand them and know when to approach them. There are a lot of challenges around customer data and collection of customer data, but there's this, it's been data for a long time, but it's really hard to collect the right data, to stitch that data together, to understand the data. But our customers want, yes, they want our data to be protected. They want their data to be protected. They want to trust the brand. But at the same time, there is this exchange that takes place, a data exchange, if you will, that kind of takes place in the sense that in order to have a brand that knows them better, knows when to approach them, knows when not to approach them very critically, that engagement is something that they're kind of willing to kind of participate in as long as they're seeing some value from that. So that's on the onus of the brand and the business to say, if we're going to collect certain aspects of your data, your browsing behavior, your history, the customer responsibility is then to say, I'll do so, and I'm willing to do so as long as it's protected and as long as it's being used to drive a superior experience. And that's what I think the data point shows. But our data is really siloed today. It's really locked up because we're collecting data on web, we're collecting data on app, we're collecting data from our call center, we're collecting data from any different channel, from social, from all these different places, and it's really disconnected. It's a silo, just like we talked about before. And I love this because I think it's a really good example, and it's actually from a view that a customer showed us, and this is their before scenario, and they're like, this is what it's like for us. Most of their technology isn't integrated. There's data silos that are created. It doesn't really keep any customer experience or journey in mind. And there's a data warehouse to store data, but it's really only storing data from some of the different sources. And all this is fed into one specific place. But really, while you have it in your CRM, your automation tool, your data lake, but with no one place to really understand customers, you're not able to unlock that and to open it up. And you can think about the example that they shared with us, which is every time that I, as a marketer, want to see a report or some information about pulling data, I have to, even if it's just an email, they have to send it to IT. They have to ask IT. They have to ask their BI counterparts to pull lists for them over and over again. And that can take weeks, and it's just not the most effective. We're really not opening up data. Not only are we not connecting it, but we're not really opening up to the organization as well. So what we want to try to think about here is an open approach to data. I don't want to say the words open data. I know there are some connotations to that, specifically around data privacy, but we really want is an open approach to data. And what that means is an integrated approach to data so that you have pre-built connectors. And we want to be able to, we talked about open APIs earlier. Yes, we want to be able to quickly connect to systems, but it's also important to connect to legacy systems. Not everyone has new, shiny, best of breed tools that they can integrate out of the box. What about omnichannel? What about in-store? What about all, potentially a homegrown system or a point of sale system? But we need to be able to integrate not just with the new digital components and new tools that people are investing in, but also the legacy ones, and make sure that they can use that information to really aggregate and pull in that data as a customer profile. And this, this isn't just, as I said, it's not for digital channels. Call center is really, really important in making sure that you can bring and connect that data and that information. Even something like mail can connect into these types of systems, and that's something that's really powerful. So here you can have this kind of 360 customer profile from multiple channels. I'll talk about that in just a moment. But by using marketing and customer tools that are open, you have some customizability. So brands oftentimes have a lot of uniquenesses, shall we say, when it comes to their business rules, their nomenclature, their geographies, their languages, really anything that comes across the data pipeline. And when you have a closed system, the business must adapt to the way that that technology or that solution works, right? So instead of the business being able to say, here's how we work, and have the tool adapt to that, it's the inverse. And it takes a long time to start to see value. You can take weeks, months, years even to start rolling things out. A lot of these projects take years to roll out because it's not really customizable, it's not flexible. So for this, you really want to be able to open up and make it highly configurable for that nomenclature and those different geographies, all those different components, so that businesses can implement solutions, but also analyze their business on their terms, not terms that a tool uses, right? They can be able to name them. They can be able to use the right terminology in their reports and things like that. And the last piece is accessibility. And I talked about this a little bit earlier, but it's really around customer views and insights. So we want marketers to have more insights so they don't have to ask BI experts to pull a report every single time. We want marketers to have this, but also across the organization. If you can achieve that single view of your customer, gain that really powerful insight, and provide this clean view of data and all this reporting and analytics that exist on top of that, if you can find that single source of truth, it shouldn't just be locked down in marketing. Everyone should be able to access that, to see those reports, to see those insights, to understand more about their customers, their propensities, their different likelihood to do certain things. And that's going to increase and boost some interdepartmental efficiencies that will help you drive a little bit more revenue and really get value out of the solutions when it comes to it. So I'm going to shift a little bit. I want to talk about machine learning for a moment because everyone loves to talk about machine learning. There is a lot to talk about when it comes to machine learning, but really what I really want to focus on and be specific on is how it can enable better data collection and superior customer insight. So when I think about machine learning in general, what machine learning can really provide is scale and also execution, and really execution at scale. But the execution is so that marketers and other teams really don't have to focus on building lists about compiling different data sources. They're going to be able to focus on things like optimization of campaigns and really the strategy behind how they'll take that information and then share it across teams. So machine learning specifically can analyze massive swaths of data at once and really deliver what I like to call it insight at scale, which is, yes, if you look at an individual customer, you're going to be able to see some information about them, but what about at scale, these much larger views and really automatically creating different segments so you don't have to do that manually. Automatically then segmenting these visitors into different groups based on their behavior, understanding what customers are likely to do certain things, who are your most highest value customers, even some things like time of day or what they're most likely to engage in. And it's really through machine learning where we can really achieve that intent. So I'm actually going to double click on this for a minute because I want to talk about one specific application I think is really valuable. And this is really about how machine learning powers data collection. And this is really machine learning in action. I think I love the way that this is presented and organized because what we're talking through here is something called identity resolution. So what we have is a side-by-side comparison of how machine learning can drive value as it relates to data collection and customer insight. So the algorithms here are responsible for resolving all these different identities. On the left-hand side, you can see 6 different interactions, right? One's on credit card, it's a credit card purchase. There's a mobile guest checkout, loyalty membership, call center activity, abandoned cart on the website, shipping request. If you can't use machine learning in this instance, you're going to have all these things are done on disparate systems. It would be identified as 6 different customers. So rather than being able to understand one unique profile, one ID, it's going to be really hard to analyze that data when it's split across those different profiles. So the identity resolution really solves for that by cleansing, deduping, stitching, and enriching the data into a single customer ID. And I wanted to share that because I think it's such a hot topic and everyone loves to talk about it at a high level that I really wanted to provide a specific example. But the thing about machine learning is that it's often a very closed and very siloed practice, something that is ensconced in the data science teams and some data analytics teams and the machine learning teams that really control and manage all those different algorithms and activities. But to see real value, to actually share that insight at scale, we need to open up machine learning across the entire organization to drive better marketing activities. Machine learning must be easy. So yes, we just talked about identity resolution, so you can automatically do that. You don't have to do a single thing when you're looking at those views of customer. But at the same time, not everyone has a data science team or BI resources as well. So once you resolve those customers, how are you going to get that insight at scale? Well, that's through things like out-of-the-box models. So you can understand ingesting any different type of data and having these out-of-the-box models. I'll talk through some examples of them in just a second. So even if you don't have a team, then you're still going to be able to see value and gain that insight. The adaptability is another piece of this. So out-of-the-box models are great, but I mean, I just kind of talked about some of the eccentricities that exist in different businesses and their requirements that they have. And they have all these unique aspects to their products and to their customer base and their how they name things. And an open machine learning framework is what we can provide here that's really going to enable data scientists and developers to uniquely tailor the algorithms that they can build rather than having to build them from scratch, and really model them to their unique business requirements. And an open approach to machine learning means that the insights are actually usable and shareable across the organization, not just to data scientists, not just to developers, but to everyone in the organization. Having things that are really easy to share. You don't have to have custom pulls of different reports. It's something that you can share across the team. You don't have to have manually pull reports from one siloed team, really providing that understanding of who customers are and what they want to do. And just a little bit on the approach to ML, because I think it's really interesting. Just a couple examples of the models. We can, of course, there's that custom capability. We can do any different thing, do it yourself, and make it really prescriptive and specific. But it's really predictions, personas, and then one-to-one personalization. So there'll be things like, for predictions, it's your likelihood to engage, for example, your likelihood to buy, likelihood to convert. But then we want to understand personas too. So clusters by different products or by different behavior, or people who shop by certain season even, or people who engage by certain season, or people who are coming to your site to look at it, for certain times of year. And then the one-to-one is when we start to get a little bit more complex, but really interesting. It's like, what's the next best action or experience for them? And even specifically into what would be the best time to send a communication. So when I think about the next piece of this, it's really around the orchestration, the personalization, and what we want to achieve and accomplish and deliver. And I think we really need to open up marketing when it comes to these things as well. Because if you have content that is open, and you have data and machine learning that is open, driving really good insights, you have content that's reusable everywhere, well, the next thing you have to do is actually get it to the right place. And being able to orchestrate that and deliver an experience that is unique and is personalized. And for organizations who can do this well, it's going to benefit their business, right? We know, and I think that I don't have to read the statistic to share that, 89% compared to 33% who don't, they're going to be more likely to retain customers. Simply being able to engage on channels where customers are. I imagine that most folks are not surprised by that. But for that, being able to do that makes you more likely to succeed. And the more you can engage, the more loyal customers are going to be, the more they're going to talk to you, communicate with you, the higher potential lifetime value and loyalty that they'll have. But beyond just engagement on multiple channels, there also must be some level of personalization to these experiences. And personalization is something I've talked about a lot. I could talk about it for hours probably. Fortunately for you, I will not. It's not really the easiest practice to perfect, but organizations are trending towards doing it more and more because customers and consumers and constituents fundamentally desire it. 80% are more likely to purchase from a company that offers personalized experience. This isn't something that we just want to do for the thrill of it. It's something that's not driven by businesses, but driven by consumer and constituent need. And bringing that personal touch to digital channels, I mean, as we know, is really more important than it's ever been. And when we have lots of digital noise in this environment, lots of content going everywhere, disjointed communications and messages that are happening everywhere, there's a lot of noise. So by kind of opening up the ability to orchestrate effectively and to personalize effectively, we're really going to help businesses. We want to help businesses cut through that noise and differentiate themselves with great content and with great experiences. So first, it needs to be easier to actually create this customer journey and to create a personalized experience. And that's something where we really want to enable and open up, unlock marketers to be able to build journeys, to be able to personalize experiences without having to have advanced coding skills. Advanced coding skills are great, but if you're a marketer who's trying to do a personalization on a site, you shouldn't have to have those types of skills. And I think that's important when it comes to making these things easier, is not being able to it's a low code environment to do so. And open also means flexibility, which is the ability to personalize any piece of content on any channel, as opposed to only having specific channels that you can personalize on, or only having specific experiences that are available to be personalized on. Or, personalization isn't just changing the name in an email, it's actually delivering a relevant experience based on who that person is and what they want to see. So being able to have that flexibility to personalize different aspects of an email, of an app, of a web page are, I think, really important. One of the things that's so great about Drupal is the ability to collaborate and to share, and we really want to be able to extend that to marketing teams. So when marketers create a good campaign, like, why would every campaign be locked in a silo? Especially for global organizations, being able to collaborate on campaign creation, to be able to duplicate a successful campaign, to be able to localize content and localize campaigns. It's going to help teams who maybe don't have the bandwidth and that are in regions that are away from headquarters. Being able to actually duplicate campaigns is going to make them send more effective communications and campaigns, being able to engage more effectively, use the right content, but also not having to start every single thing from scratch over and over again, driving some engagement across your organization, and not only with the most experienced or with the most well-funded teams. So by opening up data, by opening up machine learning, by opening up orchestration and personalization, we really believe that will help achieve that holy grail for marketers, but also for organizations, for marketing, IT, developers, as they kind of jointly go on this journey to develop, to create and deliver really amazing digital experiences online, to accelerate and transform in a digital way. And that's something that if you can do these things, it will be at your grasp. And eliminating channel-specific tools and integrating your different marketing efforts is going to help unlock your organization to digital transformation. And really what we fundamentally believe is, yes, open approach is the best way, but I would even contend that I think it's the only way in the modern environment that we just talked about, with all those compelling trends that are happening, to actually deliver a truly personalized content experience based on actual real customer insight, and to enable this across your organization. So I want to actually highlight some specific examples of organizations who have done this piece of it well, the data piece, the machine learning piece, the orchestration piece, and then I'll close it out just after that. So the first is Lululemon, who has been working with us for a long time, and they're really looking to understand their customers better. They're really trying to take all these activities that happen from online to offline. So a lot of people buy just in stores. In fact, some people never purchase from Lululemon online at all. They don't browse, they don't purchase at all, so they only buy in store. But some, and most, usually do some shopping, they look for the best deals. So being able to unify that online and offline experience was really critical, and they were really able to, from driving some compelling offers, boost their website results and see some really amazing results from a revenue perspective as well. Part of the story that I really like is, in response to COVID, they had to shut a bunch of their stores temporarily. Super cool. They actually turned them into shipping centers because of the increase in orders that they were receiving. But what they were able to do is, because they were able to sync the offline and the online experience and sync those data silos and bring them together, they were actually able to send different communications and messages to those people who have never purchased online before. So if you have a loyal person who buys Lululemon every single month and they always do it online, maybe they don't need a 25% discount for the first time they purchase online. In fact, you shouldn't send that to them. For those customers who are looking for the first time online, to maybe get them over that hump, they're able to deliver a really compelling offer to kind of help diversify that experience. Another really good example is Wix. I like this because, yes, a lot of this is sometimes about revenue and ROI, and I think those things are important, but a lot of the piece of opening things up is really about efficiency, and that's what I was trying to talk about: shareability, connection, being able to do things like reducing operating costs, all that back and forth between teams that they were able to gain. You can see, like, being able to pull information lists, like what I was talking about earlier, that shareability piece, being able, it used to take 2 weeks to pull a report and share it across the team. And then from being able to do that in 10 minutes, they were not only able to get better insight into their customers, but also to share that across the organization, which is something that was really important for them. And then Moosejaw is another example, an outdoor wear retailer. A lot of these do tend to be in retail, for the record. I think a lot of those were investing in CDP type technologies, or tend to, the leaders tend to be around in retail, but we're seeing a massive amount of traction across different businesses, not just B2C, but even in B2B, and for even universities and schools and pharma and finance. So a lot of these are retail, but there's a lot of great examples. And we're going to see a lot more trends in terms of data collection, protection, and engagement in the future in all those different organizations. But for them, it was kind of what I talked about earlier, which is this blanket discounting, which is essentially they were able to get the right communications to the right people. They have these different personas, these mountain bikers, they're weekend warriors. They kind of organize them all, and using machine learning, they were able to get these persona-based clusters and apply these models to different personas to dictate how they would discount, how they would communicate, and really only offer to customers who need it. Because some people don't really care whether or not there's a discount. They know what they want, they're going to purchase it, and they need it. But for many, they're waiting, and I'm certainly a victim of this too, is waiting for a more compelling opportunity, especially when it's your first time or you're not like a loyal customer, but you want to see if you want to re-engage. A compelling offer can really get you over the hump, and something I think is really interesting. So I just want to take a quick second to talk about what this all kind of looks like from a high-level view, this kind of new approach in unlocking and opening things up, which is when you have that open content at the core and open data at the core to understand better, to create more quickly. It kind of looks a little bit like this. So you have the single source of truth for all your content that marketers can contribute and share and collaborate to, single source of truth for data so that marketing teams can actually understand, gain insight, and share that insight across other teams. Then machine learning really providing that insight at scale for the predictive and propensity things I was talking about earlier. And then at the last piece of it, it's really that orchestration. So where should I communicate to? And as I talked about a little bit in the modalities, yes, it's sites and it's apps and it's channels, but there's also these new modalities and even business services we're going to start to need to send and deliver these communications to. So I don't want to talk a lot about product stuff. I usually don't like to talk about product at all in these types of presentations, because I really want to be focused on value, on outcomes, on use cases, and on trends. But yesterday we did launch our OpenDXP, and we have all these new names, these new packages. There's these really amazing integrations. And I'm going to take a quick second, and I wanted to make sure that anyone who had questions about this, and I think I heard there were some questions yesterday about this new packaging, these names, or this structure, but it's really for us in our Drupal Cloud being able to deliver a new developer experience with Dev Studio and Cloud IDE, being able to deliver a new marketing experience within our Drupal Cloud with Site Studio, that low-code tool that sits on top of Drupal so that marketers can create and collaborate. And when you actually move over, there's the CIO audience here. We're really to be able to create like a global scale and governance with security and cloud platform, and being able to do that with Site Factory. And then for Marketing Cloud, being able to deliver a new experience for data analysts and for marketers with our Acquia customer data platform, a new campaigner experience that's low code, and being able to do that with Campaign Studio and Acquia personalization, taking that data and being able to create in a really quick and easy and shareable way. And then the CMO experience, which is that global scale and governance with Campaign Factory. That was that shareability piece that I talked about earlier. One central place to look at all your activities, duplicate them, and to localize them. So I'm happy to pause there. I think I probably have about 5 minutes or so for questions. And Jordan agreed, give me a coupon and I will buy almost everything. I completely agree. Many people, I'm definitely like that. But at the same time, I also have my brands, I think, that I'm going to buy from because I use them. I need them, and they're kind of like my go-tos. But when the first time you try something, or especially first time you buy something online, being able to, get that little compelling offer in there, I think is always good. So I saw a couple of chats and conversations. I don't know if there were any specific questions, but I'm always happy to make sure that I take them in to talk through them, specifically about anything I talked through or some stuff about our launch yesterday, or if our folks in the booth just really crushed it and answered all your questions, that's totally cool too. If not, I'll be here. I'll be hanging out. So if folks want to get some time back. Oh, okay, good. Actually, this is a great question. All right. Now we're ready to go. Okay, I like it. So Alicia asking about seeing this in the nonprofit sector. So I think let's look at the two different solutions and think about where we're actually starting to see this. So when it comes to things like nonprofit, when it comes to areas like EDU, what we are certainly seeing is this concept of opening up content and making sure that you have teams, because in nonprofit, a lot of times these people are kind of do-it-yourselfers. They'll go in and they'll build sites, right? They're web devs, they're really awesome Drupalists, but being able to not be the only person who can do something and create this personal backlog, especially in areas where they don't have they don't have tons of resources available to them. So being able to enable folks on the team who maybe are marketers, maybe they don't have Drupal experience, this is something that's really catching on with them, specifically in terms of that kind of open content, low code piece. So the people who are the developers, they can still use Drupal because it's the best CMS out there and they want to use it, but they're not going to have their marketing teams be like, I can't use this, it's closed, I don't know how to do it, I'm not a Drupal developer. Now you can actually help see them embrace the value of Drupal. So we're seeing a lot of that part, content specifically, in the nonprofit sector and the EDU sector. In terms of personalization, we're seeing a little bit more. And when we think about, it's really like web and email for orchestration. And sometimes we have organizations who are investing in this. And that said, a lot of them are interested. And especially in the data piece, which for them, I think in some instances, nonprofit, it can be really important. But I was talking to a nonprofit the other day, and they are really trying to figure out how to effectively target their best donors so that, and they just don't have that understanding of their customer, and they don't have that view. So being able to do so, maybe they're not leveraging a full-fledged customer data platform. Maybe they're using another tool to collect data from different places, but that open approach to be able to integrate it is still really important. Nonprofit, they use so many different legacy systems. Being able to connect to your content, maybe it's data, maybe it's orchestration or personalization, is something we're seeing. And the organizations who have started to do that in nonprofit are starting to see some success because they're here when it comes to the industry investing in these things, and the different experiences is really being noticed, and that's some of the feedback we've been getting. Awesome, cool. So I see Claudia reached out asking, what are some challenges when executing personalization on the website? All right, so yes, Marvin, actually that's a great point. Thank you for that. We do have a really good webinar in EDU. I actually just gave a talk to a bunch of folks in nonprofit and Fed too, but I'll be in the booth later as well. But I want to talk through Claudia when it comes to challenges around executing personalization for a website. There's only a minute. I'll stay on until people want to jump off and do something else. But it's a really great question. So personalization can be really challenging. One of the most common things that we see is that people think they're going to do one-to-one personalization overnight because they invested in personalization technology. So one of the big challenges is they'll say, we want to do personalization, and then it's like, great, so here are some use cases, what do you want to do? And maybe they're not sure, or maybe they're like, how do we do one-to-one for everyone? And I think the reality is there's really this path forward. You can think about it as a crawl, walk, run approach, but really what you want to do is you want to go from no personalization on your site, and you want to go there from one to many, just those big segments that could really drive business value. And you can when you can do from a strategy perspective, you can start to understand and get some buy-in on who those segments of people are. It could be geolocation, could be different different browsing behaviors, people who clicked on certain pages, people who came from email. And then you want to start to move from one to some, and maybe, and then one to few. Maybe you don't even need one to one. I think you look at a lot of businesses, a lot of organizations, one-to-one may not be an achievable goal for them, and that's okay. But the thing about personalization is you need to try to use it. You want to use your most trafficked and campaigned pages first to do personalizations that are going to be easy with data and information that you have out of the box today, and then build and start iterating. And then, rather than trying to take on everything at once, because personalization can be really exciting, and to approach it not just with technology, but with strategy. Try to have a champion or have someone who can get that buy-in across the organization. I think there was another question. I'm not sure if I quite understand it. Low-code marketer, how difficult are these tools to bring to your website? I'm not sure if you're talking about the implementation there. I'm not sure if you're talking about like how do you acquire them or how do you use them? Or whether you want to actually see them in action. I'm happy to kind of talk through that a little bit more. And actually, she just said she'll be visiting the booth later, so maybe I won't get the answer. I was trying to get to answer that question, but yeah. So I think again, I got nothing to do, so I'm here to hang out for as long as people have questions and to talk, and I'll pop over to the booth for a little bit afterwards as well. But happy to stay on, answer questions, or just to talk through some stuff. Oh, Michael. Yeah, Michael asked a question. It said we have no content strategy or strategist, no KPI-based metrics, but we want to adopt personalization across the enterprise. What tool should I choose? That is a very, very difficult question. That is a question that is pretty yeah. It's I think the thing about personalization, though, I mean I talk about this a lot, and though we've been talking about it for a long time, there's only a couple tools that do it well and do it easily if you don't have a really big team or really big budget to be able to do that. And I think what you said in a point about having to rewind the conversation is really important, because in order to see, and I mean, it's like this with anything. It's like this with web content management. It's like this with CRM. It's like this with marketing automation. It's like this with analytics. Instead, the tool is a way to solve the problem, but you have to understand what the problem is and what you want to do with it. First, they always have these strategies, and you always think, what's the technology? How do I do it? But every time we see strategy first approaches, KPI first approaches, and one tool I've seen that was really one way to be really successful with that was to focus on one key KPI and build one initial kickoff starter hello world campaign to drive that one specific KPI for value. Because that's a way to kind of get started, to get your feet, and then to start to say, okay, so if we can do this, what are the other things we can do? So that's something that we see a lot. We're going to improve all of our metrics, all of our KPIs. We're going to do all these things, but really trying to really bring that down to one or maybe even two, maybe three even key metrics. I think that's really, really important. But if when you approach personalization with strategy first, with content first, and KPI first, the success, I think, is something that we've seen time and time again is easier to realize and maybe more quick to realize than those who kind of hook on and then try to figure it out from there. Okay, cool. All right, awesome. Really, I know there's a lot of great content. I really want to thank everyone for joining virtual sessions and for DrupalCon in general, for giving a listen. If you have any questions, we'll make sure the slides will be shareable, recording will be shareable. Any other things specifically, I'll be happy. I'm going to pop over to the booth, talk through this. I really appreciate everyone joining, and I hope you have a great rest of your DrupalCon, and looking forward to some of the stuff that's happening as this week kind of continues. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I'm here to talk if anyone needs.